Thank you very much, Ainsley. Mainstream media screaming Russia, Russia, Russia after the president told reporters while flying to Vietnam that he talked to Vladimir Putin about Russian meddling in our election. Putin denied it, but that's not how the media reported it.
I think he's giving Putin a pass, and I think it demonstrates to Mr. Putin that Donald Trump can be played.
He believes them, while he does not believe the intelligence agencies of the United States of America.
Donald Trump's policy seems to be trust. Hey, listen, Putin said that they didn't do it, so they didn't do it.
So were the president's remarks taken out of context? Some think so. So here we've got a debate right now. We've got staff writer for The Federalist, Bree Payton, along with professor and liberal political commentator Wendy Asefo. Ladies, good morning to both of you.
Good morning. Good morning.
Professor, let's start with you. Some analysts said that it sounded like he was siding with Vladimir Putin over his own intel agencies, although that wasn't quite what the president said. What do you make of that?
Well, I think it's really interesting that he mentioned the names of Comey and Clapper, and he said that they were political hacks. And that's not something we want to say, especially when we're dealing with a foreign adversary like Russia. And quite frankly, you know, I don't think that there is a media bias. In the recent study from Harvard, they actually showed that there is not a media bias towards Trump. It's just the way in which the media is portrayed. The media likes things that are fun, that are disorganized, that, you know, are a little off left field. And with the Trump administration, he's had a bunch of missteps. So as they're reporting, they're not reporting this to say he's a bad president. They're just targeting the things in which he's done that is out of the ordinary.
All right. Bree, what do you think? Our own John Roberts reported that the president never said he believes Putin, and yet the mainstream media coverage was, I saw several examples of where they were saying, well, the president believes President Putin over his own intel agencies. That's not at all what he said.
Yeah, it really isn't at all what he said. I mean, in the next breath, he said, I believe our intelligence agencies, they're very fine people that work over there. So, I mean, I think he's making a distinction that Putin's not going to change his answer. And, you know, we're just going to have to move on from there, right? We're going to have to trust our own intelligence community, trust our intelligence agents, and move on and go from there. And I think, you know, if the reason why all of this matters so much is because there is an ongoing investigation into whether or not the Donald Trump campaign and to what extent they colluded with Russia in order to meddle in the election, right? So it matters. It matters to be accurate, and it matters to be precise. And being imprecise and sloppy and acting like Donald Trump and Putin are best friends honestly just plays into the Kremlin's hand. And this is really what Moscow wants, to seem more powerful and more influential, and to make Donald Trump seem like he's this dumb buffoon. That's just totally playing into the Kremlin's hand, right? I mean, we have to zoom out and look at the long game here. So it's very important to be correct and precise.
And perhaps, Bree, that's why a number of outlets today are showing that awkward photo of the president going, like, trying to shake hands like that. When you look at the tape, it wasn't that awkward at all. Professor, what do you think about this?
I honestly think that, you know, Bree makes some good points, but we can't try to dumb this down and say that there was no collusion. You know, we have some evidence that says that something happened. We don't know whether, in fact, we don't, and I was about to, you know, say that. We don't know whether, in fact, the collusion happened between the Trump administration and Russia, but I do believe we have to let the investigation play out. And again, this is not something where he can say in one breath, I believe the evidence from my intel committee, and then the same breath call the members of that committee, you know, political hacks. We're not, you know, the American people are very smart here. We understand the game that is being played. And so if he does believe the evidence that's coming out of his intel committee, then he needs to say that. He doesn't need to then go into the name calling, which he's not only done to members of the intel committee, he's also done to the media. He's called them dumb, he's called them reckless. He said all types of things that are nefarious, and it's not becoming of the holder of the highest office in the land.
All right, Bree, we'll give you the final word.
Yeah, you know, Wendy, I completely agree with you that we do need to let this investigation play out. And it is very important to get to the bottom of it and determine whether or not the Trump campaign did indeed collude with Russia to meddle in the election. We know that Russia did try to meddle with our election and try to play with our minds, play this propaganda long game. And I think you're right. It is very important. But I also think that those two things can be true and don't conflict with one another, right? I think it's possible to trust the intelligence community's analysis about Russia meddling in the election election. And it's also factually true that James Comey is a hack, right? I mean, his behavior has demonstrated that to be true over and over again.
And the president was referring to that report that was compiled by Comey and Clapper and Brennan, and that's why he referred to them as political hacks. All right, ladies, great discussion this morning. Wendy Assefa.
The ultimate liberal lie. Since its formation, the Tea Party's been accused of being racist by the left. The only problem is there's absolutely no evidence on planet Earth to prove that theory. But despite the lack of proof, Democrats continue to make this accusation on national television. For example, watch this.
In 2010, the Republican infighting took a particularly dangerous tone because it wasn't just about infighting anymore. It was about taking our country back with the resurrection of the Tea Party. And it was very, very racial, whether any of them will admit it or not.
Racial, absolutely. I will not sit here and allow you to say that. The Tea Party came in. There were 63 people who came in 2010 because the government grew too much because I will not allow people to sit here and say there's a racial aspect to it. That is absolutely
All right, here to debate this, the Blaze.com radio host and contributor Dana Lash and radio talk show host Richard Fowler. Richard, give me an example. Give Dana and I an example, and if you have one, I would think Dana and I will condemn it and we'll say, absolutely, we don't support it. I'm a Tea Party member. Dana is. Give me an example where this has happened.
Well, Sean, I'm happy that you want to condemn it because I think you're completely right. I don't think the Tea Party is a race. I don't think the Tea Party movement itself is racist. I think the Tea Party has been a home for racism and for people that believe in racist ideology and racist policies
now
like
give me the
neo-Nazis.
specifics. I'm waiting for the specifics. Dana's waiting patiently for the specifics.
A couple years ago when they passed the Health Care Reform Act, CBC members, this was reported by the AP, CBC members were walking out, or Congressional Black Caucus members were walking out of the Capitol. They were called the N-word, they were spit upon, they were jeered.
Andrew Breitbart offered $100,000 for any evidence to back that claim up, and it didn't exist.
The AP reported it. There was an AP reporter there that reported it, Sean.
The mainstream media, Dana, can get it wrong?
Yeah, well, Richard's omitting the fact that Emanuel Cleaver, who, by the way, is a lawmaker from my home state of Missouri, actually backpedaled on some of that, which was reported, as he's quoting, by the Associated Press. Not to mention, there were a sea of webcams there. There were a sea of iPhone cameras and handheld cameras, and not a single one of those cameras, in an era where we have such digital technology and we're able to capture absolutely everything, not a single one of those cameras, Sean, as you know, captured anything that any of these CBC members were alleging, and then, of course, you had Cleaver backpedaling as well. So let's report the full scope of the story and not just rely on some, oh, well, the AP said. Well, the AP also said this, too.
But Richard, you just said that it was racial in some regard. The Tea Party's racial. I wouldn't be a part of a group that was racial. Dana wouldn't be a part of a group that's racial. So tell me, give me examples and help me out here.
But that's not what I said, Sean. I said the Tea Party as a movement is not racist. I'm not saying the Tea Party is racist. What I'm saying is the Tea Party has become a bastion for racism and racist individuals.
A bastion means there's a lot of examples.
But you're saying the same thing. It's semantics. You're saying the same thing.
It's not semantics at all. It is not semantics at all. There are people who are noted neo-Nazis, people who are noted. Who are, for example, Stormfront.com, who they profess to be part of the Tea Party, they're anti-Semitic, they're homophobic, they're racist, and I can go on and on about how they do not like African Americans.
We're going around in a circle, Richard. I think this is. Give us examples. Yeah, we're on the same page.
I just gave you an example. Stormfront.com.
I've never heard of
an organization
Who are they?
It's an organization that professes to be part of the Tea Party, and they actually do not like African Americans.
The Black Panthers profess to be part of the progressive movement. So do you? Or do you
no, wait a second. Now let's be very clear. Wait
a minute. No. Let's be clear. It's the same thing. So I'm not even familiar with the group that you mentioned, but you're saying that the Tea Party is racist. Richard, you're saying that the Tea Party is racist.
Dana,
We've asked for a number of examples.
Let me be very clear. The stereotype that exists.
Guys, one at a time.
Just come out with it.
Dana, you finished, then Richard. Go ahead.
Richard, all we're asking for is an example. You keep saying, well, such and such group. Okay, well, show me where Tea Partiers have behaved in a racist fashion.
I just pointed to their website, but that's beyond the point.
No, I need an example. I don't know who this group is.
The stereotype that exists in the United States is the Tea Party is a racist organization. I'm not saying it's true. I'm not saying it's false. I'm saying that is the stereotype. And in order to dispel the stereotype, what has to happen is individuals like yourself and Sean, who are upright, standing, card-carrying Tea Party members have to go out and say, we reject all instances of racism that happen at Tea
We've
Party
already
events.
Said that.
When people compare the president, when people tell the president to go back home to Kenya, when people are looking for the president's birth certificate, or people are waving the Confederate flag in front of the White House, that is what you would call racism.
That came from your side.